Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Jim Semick, and we're going to talk about questions that product managers need to ask your customers. Today, we're going to give you 12 great questions that you can ask your customers to get valuable insights for your product's roadmap. And along the way, I'll give you some tips on how to conduct the best interview with customers. So let's get started. I'm going to start a little bit by telling you about myself. I'm founder and chief strategist of a company called ProductPlan. We develop product roadmap software. I've been in product management now for over 15 years. I've helped launch several successful products, including GoToMyPC, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, AppFolio, and of course, ProductPlan. And along the way, I've become an expert at new product development, helping companies understand who the right customer is, understanding the right product to build, understand pricing strategies, and so on. And so I'm going to share some of my tips and secrets with you today. All right, so to start, a few well-phrased questions can yield fantastic customer insights. I've talked with a lot of product managers about how they conduct customer interviews, and often product managers don't ask the right questions, or they take the customer's response at face value. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the questions that you can ask that get to the truth, because when you discover the truth, you can build a better product. All right, so what makes a great question? The number one thing you can do when asking customer questions is to ask open-ended questions. And I think most of you understand what an open-ended question is, but it is asking a question that leads to other questions. It leads to a response from the customer where you can ask follow-up questions and you might discover things that you never thought about asking in the first place. A great question also helps uncover customer value. It helps you uncover what pain you're really solving for the customer, and is that worth solving? And great questions also lead to more insight. So by asking open-ended questions and great follow-up questions, you can get valuable insights into your customer and the pain that you're solving for them that might help you build better features, more innovative features that your customers may not have thought about asking you in the first place for. Also, a great question challenges your assumptions. So good product managers are very curious. Good product managers know that they don't have all the answers. So you want to be able to ask questions that challenge some of your core underlying assumptions. All right, so the answers to the questions and the way that you document them and the way that you share the responses will guide the features that you include on your product roadmap. So let's get started. Let's talk about some 12 great questions that you can ask customers. The number one question that you can ask is why? And this seems fairly straightforward and simple, but by simply asking that question after a customer's response, you can get further insights. And for those of you that have heard the 5 whys before, it's a great technique for getting to the truth. So by asking why after a customer gives you a response to a question, you can probe further. And then by asking why again, you can get to the deeper truth. Now we're trying to ask these questions for a number of reasons. One is, of course, we need the answers, right? Do you think you would use this feature? What do you think about this prototype that I'm showing you? Why would you use this feature? And often a customer's response to you is not the true underlying reason of why they're motivated to do something. And you want to try to uncover that. The true motivation can be something as deep as maybe making them look good. You want to develop products that help your customers become successful in their own life and help them look good and help them with some of their life goals. And it's not always about saving time or saving money, especially if you're in the B2B world. But it's really about helping them solve some of those core underlying problems that they have. When we developed GoToMeeting, for example, we discovered that one of the reasons that they wanted to use an online meeting solution was to not travel as much. And by not traveling as much, they could stay home and watch their kids' soccer game. So you don't get to those sorts of insights by taking a customer's initial response at face value. So that's why the question why is so valuable. All right, so another great question is to understand how a customer is solving the problem today. So if you're developing a new product, you really want to understand how are you doing that today? Another great question is, how do you know that you've had a successful day, month, or year? everyone has goals, especially if you're developing business software products. The success metrics that the customer uses for their work is often well known. So you can understand in their mind, if they had a successful year, what would that look like for them? And then you can work backwards from there and make sure that the product or the feature that you're developing is closely aligned with those success metrics. All right, so another great question, and this one is a little bit fuzzy, is how do you feel about certain things? And the question is really trying to understand their core feeling about something. And it's from that you can maybe create a product or a feature that resonates with them personally. So you want to ask the question in a bunch of different ways. You can ask the question about, how do you feel about the current solution? How do you feel about the feature that we're developing? How do you feel about the price for this product? Do you think that that's fair? So these sorts of questions can really help you understand some of the deeper underlying needs that people have. All right, another question that's similar to that is, what is the most frustrating thing about your day? What's the most frustrating thing about a particular feature that you're using? What's the most frustrating thing about the competitive product that you're using? And so asking questions about how they feel, what makes them frustrated, can really help you get to the core of what's going to work for them and what's going to sell. All right, another great question is, what do you wish that you could do with something that you can't do today? So if you're talking to a prospect or a customer that's using a competitive product, this is a great question to ask. You can also ask this about your own product. What do you wish you could do with our product that you can't do today? This is sort of a little bit along the lines of the magic wand question, for those of you that have heard of the magic wand. You could wave the magic wand and do anything. What would this product do for you? Okay. Another great question is, how would your day be different if you had this? So if you're proposing a certain new feature for your product to a customer, this is a great question to ask. So what would be different about your life if you had this particular feature? What would it do for you? Would it save you time? Would it make you less frustrated? Would it make your day a little bit brighter? Would it help you catch the love of your life? That sort of thing. So how would your day be different, or your task be different, if you had this particular feature? All right. So this is a similar question, but this one is a little more concrete. If you solve that problem that we're talking about, if I had this feature for you and you were able to solve the problem that you were just talking about, how much money would you save? Or how much money would you make? And of course, you can replace all of this. You can say, how much time would you save? How much less frustrated would you be, which is a little bit fuzzier. But in my experience, the questions around a value proposition for your product really revolve around two core ideas. One is concrete pain relieved in terms of money or time saved. Another one is some of these fuzzier benefits that you might get out of using a product. Does it make you feel good? Does it make you look better? Does it somehow make you happier? So those sorts of questions really help you get to the core value proposition for your product. All right, another great follow-up question to ask is, can you give me an example of that? So if a customer is talking about a particular workflow that they have, or maybe a particular process that they use, it's really helpful for them to walk you through that process. So ask them to give you an example. Ask them to give you an example of a particular pain that they have. And these sorts of customer stories, these real examples that they tell you, are incredibly insightful. And they're also great stories that you can take back to your team. I always feel that when you're engaging with customers, writing down true customer quotes, or even recording the conversations, goes a long way in helping establish your credibility as a product manager. It also helps the development team or other folks within the organization understand the persona that you're trying to appeal to. So this question, can you give me an example, is really quite powerful. All right. So this is the will you buy it question. I use this question with new products as well as new features, new major features that we're developing. If this were available today, would you use it? And then the customer is going to say either yes or no. And your response, of course, is why. And you always need to be asking those follow-up questions after these questions, because that's going to get to the true reason why they would or would not use a particular product or feature. All right, so for those of you that have heard of Net Promoter Score, this is along those lines. It's why would you recommend our solution to others? So for existing customers, this is a really great question to ask. And if customers stumble over this question, that might tell you a lot as a product manager. The customers really should be, and your product should be powerful enough, and it provides such a value to them that it's a no-brainer for them to answer this question. So this one can tell you a lot. And finally, my 12th question, and this one is a really good one, and product managers don't ask this one very often. Where does solving this problem fall on your priority list? This one's particularly useful for new product development. If you are developing a product and customers say, yes, that's interesting, customers say, yes, I'll use it, well, the follow-on question is, where does solving this problem or using this product or buying this product fall on your priority list? And ideally, it should be in the top 5 or 10. And if it's not, then you probably have a problem here. Because if a customer has a lot of fires happening, if they have a lot of problems that they're trying to solve, and the problem that your product is trying to solve is not part of their top 10, then you need to know that now. And these questions are really important to help suss out whether you're on the right track and whether people at the end of the day will actually buy and use your product. So use these 12 questions together in your customer interviews, and you'll discover that you'll be able to get to the truth a lot faster, and you'll be able to build more innovative products and more innovative features. So now we're going to move on to a few of my best tips for interviewing customers. I've conducted hundreds of interviews over the last decade and a half, and so these are some of the best practices that I've learned along the way. The first one is to get the interview, either with a prospect or with a customer, is to help them understand what's in it for them. So this is not a sales call. Although for new products, you kind of want to think about it like a sales call, where you're actually trying to close the deal. But you always need to be mindful that people's time is really precious. Our product plan appeals to product managers, and product managers, as you know, are incredibly busy people. And so it's important for us when we're talking with our customers to be respectful of that, to be respectful of their time. And when we were originally validating product plan, we made sure that they understood that that their insights were incredibly valuable to us, and that by sharing their insights, we're going to be building a better product for them. So that's part of what's in it for them. And so you want to be respectful and gracious, be respectful of their time. If you promise that it'll be a 30-minute call, try to keep it to 30 minutes. All right, so when you're conducting your customer interviews, you're going to find that after the 4th or 5th interview with customers that you start to forget. So it's really important that you document those discussions quickly. And it doesn't mean that you need to take dictation. It doesn't mean that you need to create a transcript of every customer interview. I find it to be very helpful to have another person in the room to take notes, to ask follow-up questions where maybe you didn't see an opportunity, and then to have a debrief with after the call. When I've done new product development, we actually create these small teams that are comprised of cross-functional groups. So you have people that are representative of an engineering team and development, folks that are part of a sales team, and then of course product development is part of it. And having those perspectives are really valuable in those customer interviews. So you want to be able to document those interviews very quickly, bullet point notes about the key learnings that you're discovering, and then discuss it as part of either the other person or as part of the team immediately. So you can make sure that you're on the same page with what you're learning. And then I also find that it's really important to eliminate the false positives in the interview. So when you're after the interview, you're going to have a little bit of a rush. You're going to have a little bit of a high after having an interview, especially if a customer is really excited about a feature or a product that you're about to release, right? And so you're full of confidence and you're excited. Well, that could be a false positive. So you want to have this debrief with your team in order to mitigate some of that overexcitement that you might be feeling with the interview. And then what I like to do is I like to summarize the interviews in some sort of format. And I'm showing you on the screen here one example of a way of distilling the interviews that you're seeing. And there are a lot of different ways of doing this, but I like to create a spreadsheet. And so you can create a spreadsheet, a Google sheet that begins to summarize the interviews and the key learnings. So what you want to discover and what you want to start tracking is, would customers use it? That's a basic question. I like to use a scoring in order to help me understand after the fact whether people would actually buy or use a particular feature. So I use a grading system of A, B, C, or D. You can also use a number scoring system. It's up to you. And then begin to understand and track what the learnings are. So if they wouldn't use the particular feature or product, why? What were some of the objections that you heard? What were some of the additional things that they wanted the feature or the product to do that you hadn't proposed? So tracking these things is really helpful, especially after you've conducted a dozen or even 24 interviews. So before we launched ProductPlan, we conducted 70 customer interviews. And of course, as you can imagine, by the time we were into our 10th or 15th interview, they were all starting to blend together. So keeping great notes and keeping a great summary of the interviews was incredibly important to us as we began to develop the product. All right, so you want to ask the right questions. You want to be talking to the right customer. When you're talking to customers and you're talking about new products, make sure that you're talking with the economic buyer. This is really an important thing to know for new product development. So it's not always about the user. Now, if you're talking about a feature, of course, you want to be talking with the users. But it's also important to be talking with the economic buyer to make sure that the feature or product that you're developing is in alignment with their needs. And this is going to sound trite, but talk with your customers more. Build in time during your week. Have an accountability partner, another product manager to do these calls with. It's really never enough. And getting those insights will establish your credibility and make you more credible within the organization, especially if you bring back those insights, those quotes, those sorts of that feedback from the customers. And then challenge your assumptions. I mentioned this in the beginning. It's really important to go in with a curious mindset. Challenge your assumptions about what you think needs to be built. And then bring in that evidence from those interviews to use to influence your product roadmap. So those are some of my key learnings and some of the things that I've learned along the way in new product development. And thank you very much for listening. I'm more than happy to answer follow-up questions. We have great content about new product development, about developing product roadmaps, interviewing customers at our website at productplan.com. You can also get a product demo. You can get a free trial of our product to help build product roadmaps. My name is Jim Semick. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm glad to answer questions. And thank you very much. Take care.